Mark, good morning. Hello. How are you?
Well, it was the solstice, the winter solstice on Saturday. And
Okay.
so I have it on good information that the days are getting longer and warmer, and that's a
Right.
good thing in my world. Okay, so
Yes,
I'm
yes,
I'm
yes.
in a fine I'm in fine fettle. My flu is
Okay.
receding, and the joyous, happy me returns piece by piece, welcoming it back as I am the onset of spring. And how are things down there with you? We are, if you want my view, one of the better placed countries for World War III.
I know. What isn't it weird that we think this way? That we
Yeah,
can we actually have to think that way. But I think it's still bad for us. I think a nuclear war
oh,
would
it's
still
bad for
not be
everybody.
great, even though we wouldn't be hit in the first wave. What do you make of sort of Trump's decision? Marco Rubio said, it doesn't matter what people say. What they actually believe is that the US did the right thing. That sort of putting the Moodles back in the box is a good idea. What do you think?
Yeah, well, let me start with a disclaimer and say I don't really know what's going on. Okay.
Yeah.
Because Trump stood up and he said, we obliterated the entire nuclear arsenal of Iran. And then Iran, not too much longer later, said, and we've done a little inspection. We can't really find any signs of damage. So, okay. So,
Yes, yes,
the
yes.
size of the bombs, it occurs to me, are directly proportional to the size of the lies. Okay. So that's my
Yes.
first observation. Okay. So I don't know what's going on, and I've got no
Right.
locus standi. My second observation, generally, before we get on to Trump specifics, is
Yes.
that isn't it insane that we would allow, let's say, five men's egos to destroy millions of people's lives? Because I'm
Yes.
sorry, Tim, it's kind of getting down to that. We don't see, you know, countries manifestos fighting country manifestos. We see individuals fighting individuals, on television in real time, and it is disgusting, if you want my view on it.
Yes.
And it's a measure of how the human race has regressed, not progressed. So I'm not for it. You might have gathered. Okay,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
not,
Yes.
I don't think it's a good
No,
idea.
I think it's interesting. I mean, first of all, there's a deep irony, and the deep irony is, of course, that Iran is being bombed for not having a nuclear weapon rather than for having a nuclear
Oh
weapon.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but the second thing, what I wonder about all of this, just from a logical point of view, because as you say, I don't know anything really either. But they had these very very deep underground bunkers where they were apparently, purifying
Building
uranium.
things,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
enriching
So
uranium to
doesn't
be
this bomb
weapons
and the
ready.
and the Americans sent out their biggest bomb,
Yeah.
and it was just very impressive. The pinpoint accuracy, all of those sorts of things, very macho. This is the kind
Yeah.
of thing that macho
Every
people like.
family should have one. Yeah.
Yeah, but to me, doesn't that indicate if that's their biggest bomb? Doesn't it just indicate to the Iranians that they need to dig a bit deeper? Doesn't it indicate how much deeper you need to dig? You know what I mean? They've
Double
they've
down.
actually
That's where
given,
the phrase
uh,
comes from.
yeah, 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 yeah. No, exactly.
Well, I haven't figured that bomb out, Tim. So
Yeah,
I haven't figured it out because here's what happens. If you drop a bomb or any object that has to go through various degrees of solids, including concrete, it must have
right,
some sort of cutting device to make space because otherwise it compacts everything in front of it, continuously compacts, and it gets harder and harder and harder. So I haven't figured,
right,
although I understand the deferred detonation, all that stuff, what I don't understand is how these things penetrate 200 meters into the earth. But
right,
that's just above my pay grade. So this is what's called a preemptive deterrent. We're going to have a whole
right.
new vocabulary coming out of this term, I promise you. Okay, a
Yeah,
preemptive. So what you do is, if you find yourself about to have a fight in the bar, you hit the other guy as fast and hard as you can, and then you say, "Let's talk." Okay,
yes,
that,
yes, yes. Because that always
that,
helps. That's really
that
always the
always helps
best
because
way
if
to
he's
deal
sitting
with an
down
argument.
already because you've just given him a warm
Yes.
clap, then it's much easier to get to the table together. Okay,
Right, right.
or I don't know, man.
This is my other problem with the just logically speaking with this whole effort. The problem with deterrence prior to the fight in the bar
Yeah,
is that your deterrence has to increase with at every interaction, right?
Right.
Because otherwise it's not a deterrent. But then the problem is that the consequences of the deterrent not working get worse and worse and worse. It's sort of it's a
Yeah,
kind of
but I think,
ratcheting process. Because for Iran, this is the reason why they're building these bombs is because they worry about their existence as a country,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And this is not going to make them worry less about their existence as a country. It's going to make them worry more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's
Anyway,
all
sorry.
these ironies. I mean, going back to the guy in the pub, the worst result of the first slap is if the guy says, "Is that all you got?" Then you go, "Well,
Yes,
hang on."
yes, 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 exactly.
But I don't think that America's hit them with all force that it has, and it's terrifying to imagine the next step, which would be global thermonuclear
Yes.
war, which is just the. But so I don't even want to talk about it because it's just
No,
stupid.
it's impossible.
Okay.
It's
Yeah,
just crazy.
and I also think it's impossible. That's been the logic for defense, the logic for the economy in the US for many, many years was that they had to build a defense capability. By the way, it's never called the attack division. Okay, it's called
Right.
the defense division. Okay, so we
Even though they
never
haven't
actually
defended,
attack.
haven't needed to
Yeah.
defend.
So we're sending off our B, whatever it is, 52 bombers to defend ourselves. We're going to take them on a 37,000 kilometer journey to defend our shores. Okay, so
Right.
I mean, this is just big toys with huge consequences. I wonder at the essence of it. The essence of it must go beyond the egos of the leaders. It goes to, I think, patriotism and religion and other stronger, much, much stronger,
Yeah.
causes and survivals of these sort of ideologies. I think is that what it's about.
Can I just give you the solution? Would you mind if I just
Oh
put the
God,
solution on
yes,
the
and
table?
publish it.
Okay. My solution is this. My solution is that Iranian youth and Israeli youth have to realize that they have more in common with each other than they have with their old, aging, bloated leaders. That's my solution. And actually,
Same
it's a
solution
strange
for South
thing,
Africa.
but
Same.
it is actually closer than you think. It is actually happening because the thing about the Middle East, which people are not noticing, I think, is how massively it's changing. Um, Country after country after country are discovering, the modern world and are getting to like it. Um,
Yeah.
the level of economic activity in the entire Middle East is really ratcheting up extraordinarily, and that means modernity is coming. So the question is modernity happening fast enough to outmode all of these, um, the five big men that you were talking about.
The same argument holds in South Africa.
Yeah,
Our youth are kind of over it. And I don't want to make that as a glib statement, but I've got
yeah,
one of my sons is still at school. I've been having kids at school for longer than I care to remember, but they're over it. They speak the
yeah,
same. They play on the same sports fields. They in a bubble. I get all of that, but outside of the bubble, I was in Belfast the other day playing on what was a poor excuse for a small golf course, but it was basically felt with two or three patches of mowed lawn called greens. Okay, and the
okay,
caddies were these kids. Okay, it was a multiracial collection of kids, enthusiastically wide-eyed, running around looking for our balls. Mates, they were mates. They were 14 years old, whatever it was, having a
right,
jaw. And so
right,
I think therein lies our future. But the trouble with power is exactly that. We do not have public servants anymore. We have public power. The people who are in charge are in charge. They're not leading. If you get my point, that's the issue.
yeah,
And once you've tasted that power, and once you be able to do with reckless abandon whatever serves your own personal interest, it's kind of difficult to wean yourself off it. The only way
yeah.
we change
No, no, no.
that
It's very
is we get
interesting.
some
I mean,
40-year-olds in
the
charge.
Yeah, I mean, what's happening in the states is the debate that's happening internal to the Republican Party in the states. I think is one of the most interesting aspects of all of this, because there is an isolationist strand in American politics and has been for years and years. The MAGA sort of faithful, they don't like this actually.
No.
which is why you
No.
have this strange. We're going to bomb you, but also we're in favor of peace. We want peace.
We're going to bomb
It's
you
a
until
it's a
you
very
and
curious thing.
yeah, and we're going to bomb you until you get peaceful. Now, but you've seen what's happened in LA. You've seen. I think to answer your initial question on Trump, I think he's going to find that he's dividing America, not making it great again, but on
Yes,
almost every dimension, locally, internationally, in
yes.
war and in peace, in commerce and in whatever other measure. And it hasn't taken, thankfully, it hasn't taken the American public long to start saying, what the hell did we do?
Yeah, I mean,
That's my view.
I mean, for from just to bring it back home a bit, for South Africa, this is a very complicating thing, right? Because we're the
Yeah.
ones who welcomed Iran into the BRICS grouping. Um,
Yeah.
so now there's an extra question mark over that, and
Well, we're not shying away from that initial position. I mean,
yeah, no,
every
exactly, that's
bit of
right.
news I
Yeah,
read is doubling down on that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The other aspect of this, of course, is China. And the Chinese have just unilaterally lifted their tariffs on African countries, on all African countries other than Eswatini. It's a sort of it's a very smart move. It's a
Yeah. When you say lifted,
and
let's be
it's going
clear.
to
They
help.
have eliminated them, right?
Yeah.
Not
Um,
increased them. So lifted, that's, I just want to be
okay.
clear
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
they've
Yeah.
done.
No.
Yeah.
Lifted as in as in taken away.
Yeah. As in
Um,
taken away. Yeah. Yeah.
but
Well, I think it's a very
it is
smart move.
really weird that we've got a situation where China seems like the pro-capitalist stable centrist power.
No, no, no.
I mean, it's just so weird.
No, no,
Yeah.
don't get beguiled by these things.
Okay.
There's an there's an there's an economic thrust, a long term economic thrust which
Yes. No.
hasn't
Of course.
changed at
I know.
all,
Yeah.
and that's still pervasive. And this plays to their hand because they're making friends where others are making enemies. But now you raise China, I see China
Right.
now. It seems to have crossed the line, and I didn't get the numbers of making electric vehicles the go-to vehicles. Now,
Yeah.
we, in my view, are very far away from that situation. Maybe it's because we don't have reliable electricity, but I found that interesting that because I've got an electric scooter, okay, and I can
Oh,
tell you
good.
they are fabulous things. The
Okay.
acceleration is immediate because they're driven. They don't
Yeah.
have to fire up the engine and all that kind of jazz, and light
Yeah.
music. And so, what do you think about electric cars and all of these things? It's just the
No.
force
I
of product that's going to win. I
Yeah,
don't know.
no, it illustrates two things to me, and you probably know more about this than me. I've been writing for years that we should embrace this faster than we have been, and
You're a
for
visionary, Tim. It's
example,
because you're a
I
visionary,
know I'm a
man.
visionary. I'm a
You
total
are the
visionary.
electric visionary. For goodness sake, people just don't
No, but
know.
it just seems so
Yeah.
obvious to me. But South Africa still hasn't done it. We still have a
Yeah.
25% tariff on imported electric cars. 25%. I mean, you're never going to pay 25% more for an electric car than for a
Here's
petrol
a
car. I mean, it's just stupid.
here's a
It's just stupid,
generalization,
stupid,
Tim.
stupid. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
Here's a
well,
generalization.
but
There
yeah,
are,
yeah.
there are a few
But
places
I
where I
know, I
know
know.
the
Well,
truth.
obviously, some people are going to, but I mean, in a car for car comparison, a 25% price increase is basically a bar. It's
No,
basically
but what?
a
Yeah,
prohibition. Um,
the trouble is we are debating logic here. Okay, I don't
okay,
think we know the truth. Okay, and these observations require a deep understanding of their motivation. Okay, and now there
right.
are some places where I know the truth. Okay,
Okay,
and it's only once you know the truth can you understand the extent of the misguidance or the lie. And so,
right,
why is the question? And it's not logical, as you point out, but it is
right.
by someone's agenda logical that we are, putting a tariff on. There's some quid pro quo. There's some scorecard. There's some favor or t'other that we are pursuing. Or am I getting a
Yeah.
bit,
No, no,
cynical?
no. I mean, yeah, I think you put your finger on it was because in the era of load shedding, the idea of of introducing electric cars into South Africa just seemed a bit kind of weird, right? So we had to solve
Right.
that problem before we got onto the next one. So that
Yeah.
that's part of the logic. The other part of the logic, I presume, is that we have quite a big car industry in South Africa, and they are a very big
Huge.
lobby, and we want them to continue operating. And part of the deal is that we don't allow big time competition. But obviously, this is all changing, right? But
Yeah.
from a different perspective, uh, um, it does demonstrate to me the utility of being future orientated. Because clearly, what's happened here is that China didn't have a big car industry, and they saw a big change taking place in the nature of manufacturing and production, and they were able to get in on the kind of ground floor of this, and so now 4 of the top 5 electric car producers in the world are now Chinese. And they're gradually spreading out. They have a big enough home market to really establish the brands and the
Well, I think you
reliability and
raised
the
an
service
important
and all of
point
that.
there.
Yeah,
Their home market gets them to economies of scale by itself.
yeah,
Okay, so their
yeah.
the unit cost of production is they're the lowest cost producer at the get go. Okay, and so
Yes.
that does give them. But talking about cars, I've got another subject. So I read
Okay.
that Joburg Metro have now made a declaration, as it were, that if they stop your car and find more than 3 faults, I don't know what the definition of a fault is, but if they
Right.
stop your car and find more than 3 faults, they're entitled to take it off the road. Which brings into focus this question of roadworthiness. Now, I
Right.
think the focus is on the wrong side of that double. I think we should start
Okay.
focusing on the road, not on the cars. Okay, so we should we should have roadworthiness tests for the metro. Okay, not them
Right.
have roadworthiness tests for our cars. Anyway, it's kind of amusing that they are telling us how good our cars need to be, but they seem to carry on with impunity about how bad their roads are. Anyway, I thought that was kind of
Yes. Yes.
amusing. Talking about traffic
Um.
as well. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I watched things that emerge because of things that happen, and the one thing that's
Okay.
starting to come into focus is air traffic.
Right.
Man, I don't know how they control it, man. I don't know if you've seen these representations of air traffic around the world and the density and the, I mean, the
Yes.
fact that we have so few accidents is borderline miraculous. And if you wanted to start a proper war, you would just cut radar or something. I mean, it's hey, do you
No, no,
is
no.
it
I mean, on the very few occasions you've probably been on a lot of more private planes that I've been on. But one of the interesting things, about flying, is how little
mm,
control the pilot actually has. You know what I mean? Because the pilot, first of all, you have
you
to
got a
log
route and
your
yeah,
route.
yeah, yeah,
And secondly, you have to fly according to that route. And if you
yeah,
deviate from that route even a little bit, you have to get permission.
yeah,
Everything happens out on the ground actually in flying. Sort of.
yeah.
So
That's
you
what I'm
say,
saying.
I've
If
reached
that
this level,
system,
and I'm flying at this level, and this is my speed.
mm,
And if the guy on the ground or the woman says, you got to go slower, go higher, go to the left, you do that.
mm,
It's
yeah, you do that
it's a
because
it's a very interesting. It's not like driving a car where you decide where you're going to go. It's interesting.
well, I kind of think that's where we're heading is to driverless cars or to
Oh,
guided
that's true.
cars.
Yeah,
Okay, so so
yeah,
so, so you want to drive from here to Tshwane, and you plug in your departure date, and you get radio controlled, even if you are the driver. Okay, and
yes.
and and can you imagine the benefits and challenges that brings with it in terms of traffic control and so on? If you had everybody just moving now. The trouble is that if some guy stops, oops, you see, with the road, you can't kind of go under or over them or around them because the lanes are
Yes,
all
yes,
full.
yeah.
But
Can I just go a
we
little bit
we
left?
we go a little bit left. Are you crazy? There's a river here, man. So anyway, we are automation, AI, all of these things. Tim, I think you have a different view on me in this, but I think AI
Right.
and all of these aggregating mechanisms and lowest common denominator distilled conclusions are going to make us dumber, man. Hmm?
Well, there's
Because
some. I did. I
we're
did
going to
read
get
some
dumber.
scientific report. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think it's. I mean, I look at on this. I don't know whether I'm just being naive here, but I look on AI just as a tool. It's like a tool. I mean, it's like a
It is a
wrench.
tool.
If you need
Yeah,
to,
it is.
loosen a
Yeah, yeah,
bolt,
yeah.
you go to the garage, you get the wrench, and then you
Well,
put
I
the
think
wrench
I've
in,
said
and
this
then
before. I mean, The
Okay.
internet is like an encyclopedia, okay, but it's a
Yeah.
faster, more thorough. So
Yes.
you ask it a question, you get an answer. There's a big
Right.
difference between asking for the answer to a question and asking for an opinion on a subject, okay.
Right.
And that's, I think, the dividing line. When you ask
Okay.
an opinion, you will get at best an accumulation of observed facts without any original thought. My definition of
Okay.
intelligence got nothing to do with IQ scores, things of that nature. It is your capacity and demonstration of original thought. Take that and
Okay.
smoke it. Yeah.
Okay.
And AI
Can
ain't got
I
it yet.
um, can I change the topic completely
I wish you
to
would.
finding a job? Because I want to
Yeah.
throw out a number.
Throw out a
Um,
number because there's been a lot of debates about who's got jobs and who hasn't got jobs lately. Yeah.
Which degree? Now, this is a data according to the Visual Capitalist. So I'm just repeating here. I don't know whether this is true or not. The which job in America has the worst is the worst degree for finding a job? Which degree do you do to get the and you have the worst chance of getting a job?
Doctor.
No, worst, not best. Surely
I've
doctor, you've got a
said,
good.
do you know how many unemployed doctors we got in South Africa?
Oh, really?
Okay,
Okay,
worst, worst,
I didn't
worst.
know
I
that.
imagine social sciences.
It turns out journalism.
You see, I told you, Tim. I've been telling you for years. You're in the wrong job. Hey,
I know, I
hey.
know. All right. Well,
It's
Mark,
always
that's our
it's an
time.
interesting concept. It's an interesting concept to think of studying journalism. What is the content, the course content? Because I think journalism has a lot to do with an inquiring mind and an ability to communicate. I don't know much
Right.
that you need much more. But help me,
No,
tell me, what do you when you study
no. There's stuff.
journalism? Hey,
There's stuff you can learn. No,
is it
it's like everything. Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think. I
Well,
hope.
well, well, we've reached the turning point in winter. Have a good week,
Okay.
people.
Have a good week. Thanks for joining us. Cheers. Cheers.